Hello.
I never thought we'd see the day. Well, here it is, our first crossover. We're bringing Venom into the Star Wars universe. Let me know if you enjoy and I might do more of these. Our story begins on Mustafar after Obi-Wan defeated Anakin Skywalker. He was burnt nearly to death and started to ascend the lava rivers with his one remaining limb. Luckily for him, it was his metallic arm, because trying to climb the sulfur would have been nearly impossible with burnt to the bone skin. Anakin got closer and closer to the top, and then he felt his master's presence. As he was lying there waiting for Palpatine to come and visit him, a small symbiote crawled across the hot sands of Mustafar. This particular symbiote was accustomed to Mustafar by this point and was able to survive the heat by burrowing below the surface. It was the only cool area on the planet for the symbiote to find, so that's where he went. The fighting in the high ground quote awoke him from his slumber. He was aware of the facilities, but it wasn't like he could get over to them because they were on the other side of an incredibly large lava river. Venom just waited until someone came to this godforsaken place to hatch a ride. When he heard the combat, he peeked out and watched Anakin get cut down and then burned alive. He knew going to Anakin would be the worst idea while he was burning, so he waited for him to cool down. The clones in the shuttle were nearby and he didn't see them, but he watched the dark-hooded figure check on the burning man. Venom was going to wait until he could get off this planet so that he could bond with somebody. So before the clones put Skywalker onto a stretcher, he slipped aside of his still remaining and intact clothing and then hid. Being brought inside the land of the shuttle was really odd because it was such a different environment to being on Mustafar. So it was really nice for Venom. He took a notice at Palpatine but didn't really care for his butt-ugly face. Why was he built like that? Venom was a blob, but at least he didn't look like a dried sponge. The trip to Coruscant was long and boring, but when they arrived, he felt the soothing rain on him as they entered the medical facility. Venom kind of bounced when they got to the operating table. For a short moment, he thought about possessing the ugly sponge, but he decided that he didn't want to help someone who was that ugly. Also, the dude on the operating table seemed like he needed a buddy, considering the one who planned to be his brother diced him up and left him for dead. When the operation was complete, Venom watched the rise of Darth Vader and learned to the death of someone called Padme. He wasn't all that concerned because he just had a new fear unlocked. He watched lightning pour out of Sidious's hands. Vader accidentally used the Force on Palpatine and he took that personally and electrocuted him for touching him. The lesson was that Vader would never do something so heinous again. Plain and simple. No reason to complicate things. Vader was unsteady on his feet, and Sidious told Vader that he would be back in for him in due time. He was going to let him get used to his suit and then drag him around. Vader kinda slouched over. Venom figured this was a better time than ever to pop out. Venom came out and looked over at Anakin and asked him if he was good. Vader looked around for the sound of the voice and he saw a black blob. He demanded to know what kind of sorcery this was, and Venom was just as confused. He told him it wasn't sorcery, he was a living being. Vader reached out his hand to grab him, but Venom vanished from his line of sight. Vader looked around his hands, but then he stood up. He wasn't used to the suit, so as he stood up to turn around, he slipped and slammed down into a tray, knocking it over and then slamming onto the ground. When Vader turned around, he saw this blob sitting on his mask. The blob told him that he wanted to form an alliance, and Vader asked why he would form an alliance with something that wasn't real. With all the pain that Vader had experienced in the recent couple hours, the thought of a sentient symbiote was just kind of a thinking that someone with an adrenaline high would come up with. Pain does weird things, so he obviously was just imagining it, right? Venom told Vader he could help him break out from the suit and give him his old life back. This caught his attention, but he asked how. Obviously with Padme dead, he was kind of disappointed with ominous messages about saving things, but why not? He told Venom, who he was still convinced was just a hallucination, that he would, but he wanted to know the terms. Venom just said he wanted brains. What did that even mean? Venom just needed food to survive, and that was his type of food. Vader just said that he didn't want to eat brains, and Venom told him he didn't have to eat Jack. All he had to do was just be a good host, and they would get along fine. Well, why not? Venom slid through the cracks in Vader's mask, and all of what he thought to be a hallucination became reality, and he panicked. How was he supposed to process it? Venom called Vader a big baby and told him to chill. What does chill even mean? Venom made some offhand comments about how messed up Vader was, and he sighed, expressing his annoyance. Of course he was messed up. His whole world was flipped upside down and he was burned alive. Venom figured that if they were going to be with each other for a while, they might as well get comfortable with each other. So, being that healing all the damage, especially the internal damage, would take a lot of time, they might as well get to know each other, so that's what they did. Vader told Venom about his life as Anakin Skywalker and what happened. There are two main feelings for Vader, anger and regret. He was furious, not at Obi-Wan, but that he first of all lost, not just his legs, but Padme too. Secondly, that he was made a fool of by Palpatine, and thirdly, that he was in this condition. Given more time, Vader would actually come to regret everything a lot more than he did at this moment, but the mere fact that he couldn't even walk on his own was all the more telling of his disappointments. Venom told Vader about how he ended up on Mustafar. He bounced around from host to host for a while, and then he was taken to a planet before it was full of lava rivers, and he was abandoned there. The only way he survived was by feasting on some of the very few local inhabitants on the planet. The talk went really well, but the only thing that they could heal was Vader's lungs, which was a great improvement. It was just, Sidious came back in. Venom told Vader he wanted to eat him, but Vader was wary that Venom would die in the process, mostly because he wanted to get his legs and arms back, so this was a genuine selfish reason from prohibiting Venom from striking. Though something Venom found interesting about Skywalker was this Force. He never had a host that could use the Force, let alone someone with as many midichlorians as Anakin. Venom just kinda lay low for the entire walk, which was kind of hard. He had a mouth on him, and the entire time he was pulling at Vader's chains, trying to get him to laugh or simply mess up by pointing out how arrogant Sidious was, which is something Venom didn't really care for. He liked his banter and he liked to have a bit of an ego, but this was overzealous to say the least. This dude was basically breaking his own neck to... well, never mind. When they were done, Sidious told Vader to go out and do a mission for him. This was the moment Venom almost popped out, but he didn't because of the lightning that this wizard possessed. When they went out to do whatever it was that Sidious asked them to do, Venom told Vader to go to a hidden place and remove his armor. How specific. But this wasn't the first time Vader got to see what was surrounding him. He pulled the armor off and Venom rose from the shell of Vader's outfit, and they looked in the mirror. Anakin couldn't help but compliment Venom, telling him that no one ever should have left him behind. Venom didn't really say anything, he just got to work on Anakin's legs and arms. Because the host and the symbiote was so interconnected, Venom had some powers he didn't realize he had, so he turned around and jumped up. Instead of a regular jump, he plastered himself into the ceiling. It didn't stop there, because as he tried to brace himself, he sent out a shockwave with the Force that did brace his fall but completely shattered the floor beneath him. Venom began to panic, as he realized that Anakin was also a wizard, and he asked him if he knew how to do that lightning thing. Anakin chuckled and explained that he didn't know how to, but he could walk him through these powers on the Force if he wanted. It was like being with his student again, step-by-step instructions on how to just use a Force. Actually, it was like being a youngling again, really a throwback for Anakin. This was all being done while Anakin's limbs were being regrown. Venom made a couple jokes and told him,
I can make you taller or stronger or whatever.
Just do what I was before.
I can make you big enough to be in the NBA if you want.
To be in the what?
What? This guy doesn't know what the... Wow, I feel for you.
The two of them had a really solid banter going on, but Anakin's legs were replaced and shortly after, both of his arms were too. So Venom went back in and let Anakin look at himself in the mirror.
Oh, come on, I don't have any clothes on.
Hey, at least you look good.
Shut up.
Just being a bro.
Anakin laughed it off and looked around the room to get some clothes on. There weren't any, so Venom just told him they could bond and look for something else. Anakin knew he could grab some spare outfits from Padme's residence, so he was good for him. They found a means of transport to get to her apartment, and when they arrived, Anakin was able to grab some clothes. By this point, Venom was hiding within his skin, which was fun and all until Anakin looked at himself in the mirror. Again, it was really weird for him. He had both of his hands, and he didn't have a scar over his eye. He was happy with what he had now, thanks to Venom. While he was looking in the mirror and talking to himself, Venom jumped out and scared him half to death. Anakin asked Venom to show himself fully again because he really wanted to get a good look at him, which was accompanied by another fine jump scare. Anakin and Venom decided that it was time for them to take their fight to the Emperor so that Anakin could hold up his end of the deal for Venom. Anakin told Venom that he was just worried about him. Judging by Vader's first encounter with Sidious, he seemed exceptionally talented with Force electricity, like what he did to Mace wasn't even more of a show of it. During their talk with each other, Venom told Anakin some of his weaknesses and how whenever they were to attack this Sith Lord, he was in genuine danger. Though Venom had to express some truth to Anakin, which took him by surprise. He told Skywalker that he didn't really care for him initially. Truthfully, he only cared about him because he wanted to get off Mustafar. But seeing as how much of a piece of work his boss was, he was willing to maybe be of an assistance. Now that they had some formed alliance, Venom no longer saw him as a vessel, rather a partner. But Venom, after getting this off his mind, asked Anakin how he was planning to help him. Anakin kinda sat down. The thoughts of still being Vader still present in his mind, but the death of Padme even more so. He told Venom that he originally wanted to go back to the Empire, maybe become Emperor and take over, and sure, that was all still possible, it just wasn't something he felt called to do. After being humbled on Mustafar, the only thing he really cared about was revenge. Not on Obi-Wan, but Sidious. Anyways, basically he was thinking at this point that if they survived their encounter with Sidious, then they could go into the Outer Rim, and Venom could be like an anti-hero. Venom remembered some of his previous bonding partners and actually kinda liked the idea of this. As long as he got some brains, then he would be fine. Brains and chocolate. Anakin didn't know what chocolate was either, so he was kinda worried about the whole brains thing. Venom asked Anakin where he'd get some at, and Anakin kinda looked over to the window. There were 3 trillion people who lived on this planet. Venom got a little giddy, but Anakin had to calm him down. He suggested instead of eating the decent people, there was another place they could do it. Venom was starting to get hungry, so it was kind of a now or never kind of thing. Either they go and get what Anakin was suggesting, or the people around the little mountain would become lunch. So they took a speeder and went down to the lower levels. This was actually a blessing in disguise, because Anakin was fully unaware that his powers would fully transfer to Venom, and Venom was unaware of how effing powerful Skywalker was. They got down to level 1342, and as they were walking, Venom kept pestering Anakin about who to eat. Oh, a mom and her son? No! How about them? A couple of newlyweds? Wait, down here? No! Venom asked a couple more times, and Anakin kept saying no. One of them was a group of school children. Anakin said especially no to that. Then Venom asked why he had no issue with doing it himself. To say the rest of their walk was an awkward silence was an understatement. Venom just wanted to understand why Anakin could kill kids, but he couldn't. It didn't seem fair. Well, okay, that's enough. Anakin got to a club for gangs, and when they walked in, the people turned their heads around and their weapons at the Jedi. Anakin shrugged his shoulders. Venom unleashed himself, still unaware of how the Force worked. When he blasted his arms outwards, shockwaves went with it, throwing people to the sides. One of the weaknesses for Venom could be using too much adrenaline, but with the Force working through him, it didn't feel that way. Anakin watched from the interior, almost in fear. It was a sick reflection of what he did inside the temple, except when he did it, the people didn't exactly deserve it. Venom was having a bit of a power high. He was loving life, throwing his arms out and eating people's heads, and going crazy. When it was all over, the little club was a massacre. Anakin told Venom he was going to be sick. Venom told him to get over himself. Even his host from an undeveloped world handled this better. With his energy restored, Venom had to know how to use the Force the way Anakin was doing it, and Skywalker showed him how to do it, even telling him his understandings of the Force blocks and stuff like that, things he saw Dooku and Yoda do against each other on Geonosis. They continued walking, and Venom expressed that he was glad they were boys. It had been torturous being on Mustafar for so long, and just having a homie meant the world to him. Anakin also enjoyed this, as he realized that throughout his life he had only really put people into a family tree. He didn't just really have friends. Obi-Wan was a brother and a father figure. Padme was a wife and a lover. Ahsoka was his little sister. Qui-Gon was a father figure. No one around him really filled any roles aside from that. It's not that he didn't get along with people, it's just more buddies, if you could call that, than anything else. To have a bro was kinda nice. It was a change of pace for him. And it was a good change of pace. They went back up to the top side of the surface and made their way for the executive building. Upon their arrival, there were a number of clones, but they looked at Anakin like the boys inside the temple did. He was on their side. That's all that mattered. Venom asked if he could eat the bucketheads, and Anakin waited until he passed the clones to tell him no! The clones were their allies. Venom got a kick out of this. Despite the memories he had access to inside of Anakin, he didn't go too far back. He didn't realize they were all the same person. He thought this was hilarious. Why was it funny? He didn't know, just one of those things. They walked into Palpatine's office, and he turned around and was filled with confusion. The Dark Lord asked how this was possible. Anakin just shrugged his shoulders and said, "The dark side is a pathway to many abilities, some considered to be unnatural." Venom launched himself forward and Anakin transformed into the hulking beast. Sidious's jaw dropped even further until he was smacked in the head and thrown across the room. Sidious got up and looked over at this creature, and naturally unleashed lightning. Venom used the trick that Skywalker told him and created a little bit of a force barrier in front of him, but their combined strength was not yet prepared to combat Sidious. His lightning broke through the barrier and threw Venom across the room. They fell behind a piece of furniture. Anakin and Venom had a small talk about what to do, and they came to a conclusion. Sidious walked forward, igniting his lightsaber, demanding they show themselves. Venom peeked his head over and looked at Sidious. The Sith Lord's piercing yellow eyes were nightmare fuel even to him. Sidious twirled his blade in his hand, and Venom threw his arm forward, only for it to be slashed. That didn't feel great. Their arms outstretched to surround Sidious, and then they blasted the Force inwards, tossing Sidious side to side, before leaping up and kicking him in the head.
You underestimate our power.
They then rushed forward, and Sidious shot lightning back into Venom. They wretched in pain as the symbiote began to struggle unlike ever before. Venom slowly started to become less and less visible. The pain was extraordinary, but Anakin, having been burned alive, could handle it. He told Venom they needed to work together, and he yelled out as he reached their hands down, still covered in electricity, and grabbed the lightsaber, dragging it across the room and cutting Sidious into pieces. They both fell backwards, and Venom told Anakin that he was going to eat that dude's head. That was fine. They crawled over, and Venom got his bite before they leaned against the wall. Anakin used the Force to flip a switch on the door panel to close it so that no clones would come into the room while they were laying here. Venom told Anakin he was pretty cool, and the compliment was shared back with him. Though Venom needed to know when his end of the bargain would be kept up. Well, right now. Before they left, Venom had to do something really, really important.
Venom stopped making me dance on his body.
Shot it, Ho. We won. We deserve this.
They made a move into the outer rim, and as they did, Venom told Anakin that he put a part of him onto a boot of that guy who cut him to pieces if they wanted revenge. Why was that important? And Venom explained that it was a way to track somebody. But as they went to the outer rim, it became clear that they were moving away from Obi-Wan, which was really weird. Anyways, Anakin figured out that the outer rim being full of slavers and such would be the perfect way for Venom to get what he wanted, and for Anakin to get a semi-decent redemption. But he didn't feel great about anything. Sure, they got their revenge, but he felt like he was still missing something. Venom kind of picked up on this and asked him what was bugging him. They mostly had discussed this before, but now they really got into it, which is more or less he missed Padme, and after a long trip from Coruscant to the Outer Rim, he wanted to apologize to Obi-Wan. He hadn't fully felt terrible for his actions at the temple. The kids he felt the worst about, but the rest of the temple, not so much. For Anakin, his main concern was Obi-Wan, being that he was someone that he loved to death. What he did to Obi-Wan was horrific, and that was something he wished he could take back. Well, with Venom able to track him, that's what they did, which brought them all the way from the Outer Rim back to Alderaan, after Venom he kind of ate everyone in Jabba's palace. Also, Venom really liked the taste of Hutt. Just a whole mixture of everything. Yeah, to him, it was a fine delicacy. It was just the texture, the slime, the feel. It was an enlightening experience for Venom. Anakin, not so much. When they got to Alderaan, Anakin was confused. Venom just tracked Bail Organa's ship, which also didn't make a ton of sense. Why would a Venom piece be in there? As it turns out, Obi-Wan dropped the piece in here. It was under a table in the conference room, so he must have kicked the chair, the table the wrong way, and it fell off. But on the bright side, one of the crew members saw Anakin enter the ship, and Bail sent the guard to bring him in. Of course, Bail was unaware that it was Anakin, because the guard only noticed a man walking into the ship, not Anakin Skywalker. So as Venom and Anakin were investigating, they were surrounded by the Alderaan guard. It was very tempting, especially for Venom, to fight them, but Anakin wanted to find Obi-Wan. Anakin had his whole life planned out after the apology. He and Venom would go into the Outer Rim and become vigilante maniacs. They would be anti-heroes, but at the very least they could take down some of the syndicates. When they were brought before Bail, he was surprised to say the least. First, Anakin was supposed to be dead, but also because Anakin was supposed to be a maniac. He was very calm and collected, which confused him, though through a bit of conversation they were able to diagnose what had happened and where their stances were. This led Bail to doing something he was afraid of doing, but he informed Anakin about the children surviving. It was a shock, but a good kind. This kind of led to another debacle. Anakin, being their father, wanted them back because, well, he was their dad. Bail was skeptical of this, but it had only been a day since they had Leia, so what could they do? They weren't fully attached yet, but yeah, it was awkward. For a long time, actually. So awkward that Venom almost detached and jumped off the open balcony nearby. Anakin only realized it would be the same with his half-brother or stepbrother, or whatever Owen was. Anakin did get to have his daughter back, which was a great relief, though that wasn't the only thing. He also got 3PO and R2 back into his ownership. It was kind enough to give him a small vessel because of his work to defeat the Emperor. It wasn't massive, but it had enough rooms for 2 children, and him. So in other words, 2 rooms, back to back. He would at least have a place to keep them. When it came to making money, that would be something else. But Venom had his thoughts on the matter. Bail would head back to Coruscant to make things right, while Anakin went to Tatooine to have another awkward conversation. While Anakin may have hated Tatooine, Venom loathed it. The twin suns were nearly unbearable, which is why when they attacked Jabba, they did it at night. Basically the same conversation happened and Anakin was given his child back. It wasn't a fun conversation and both sets of parents had their own issues with it, but Anakin was the father, so they couldn't really argue with that. Of course, being on Tatooine, Anakin had to go over and talk to Obi-Wan. This conversation wasn't as awkward, but it was painful. Obi-Wan looked at Anakin the way he had before the Battle of Utapau. It was like seeing a ghost, which only haunted him more. But Anakin was sincere in his apology and told Obi-Wan that he shouldn't stay here on Tatooine. That was agreed upon, but it was still weird. Obi-Wan forgave Anakin, but he didn't want to be around him. He needed to find himself before he could accept what happened. He still hadn't processed it all, so he wished Anakin luck on his endeavors. With 2 children, Anakin and Venom had a mission to do. While Anakin had to confess that he was initially going to leave Venom on his own with a new host, he figured he might as well stick with him. He had no credits and a family to raise. Luckily, they had 3PO and R2 to help them raise the children. Venom hated that the children cried, like children are supposed to do. It led to some outrageous conversations between Anakin and Venom, but it wasn't a terribly big deal to him. He fully bonded with Skywalker. They were 2 and 1, and since Anakin wasn't a Jedi or a Sith, they were both as cynical as the other. Though by fulfilling his promise to Venom, they became a vigilante duo. They worked really hard in keeping up both ways of life. During the day, they would go to a planet they wanted to go to, act like normal people, and then at night, go absolutely mental. Venom loved it. He got to try out cat people on Zygeria, go eat more huts on Malhutta, and even get a taste for the pikes on Obadiah. It was quite the life. Of course, this took years to do. So as they continued being vigilantes, they raised Luke and Leia into extreme wealth. Aside from giving back to communities, they had to take some for themselves. So instead of sleeping in starships inside of spaceports, Luke and Leia got adjusted to upper-class lifestyles by the time they could speak. They also got to go into the most expensive hotels and residential areas in the Outer Rim and even Mid-Rim, while Dad was out terrorizing gangs and stuff. Venom did get a chance to use Anakin's lightsaber from time to time, but he pretty much preferred a life of using the Force alongside his own powers. He felt like a god, and he basically was. The two of them became almost one, without much differing from their personality aside from Dad Skywalker being, well, a little more mellow than the psycho that was Dad Venom. The Republican Jedi and so on were doing fine, but they weren't living the high life that the two vigilantes were living. Luke and Leia asked about getting a new mother, but Anakin was determined to stay single. He believed he should be. While Padme would have never wanted that for him, Anakin was content with it. He had everything he wanted. Obi-Wan was still alive, and he was living his best life. It would have been better if the Order wasn't destroyed, but hey, it's alright. He still had Rex and Ahsoka out and about every so often when he ran into them, and he was chill. Plus, Anakin had his kiddos, which were just little bundles of joy, and Anakin had his best bud who was inside of him all the... That doesn't sound right. But Anakin got to do what he wanted without a code or anything, and what he wanted was to tear down the slaver empires and make them suffer. So, he and Venom did that. Their lives would be filled with adventure, large appetites, and taking down the established powers that hurt people for centuries. And that, my friends, is our story. This video wouldn't have been done with all you guys that voted on that poll. Again, special thanks to our patrons, Galvin Gaming, Tristan, Darth Revan, Pimp Daddy Bane, The Last Jedi, Apollo, Weewoo670, Annika Stank Runner, CT7567, Oz of Oz, Darth Nox, The Eternal Padawan, Johnny Nguyen, Sansa Skeleton, Jedi Sloth, Mr. Yeet Gamer, Lord Calic, Youngling Slayer 66, Mathematic Studios, Anakin 003, Fortis Legacy Star Wars, Lemon Knight, Rex, The Wolf, The Man with 3 First Names, Darkstain 46, Baron Joshua, and Lord Deadwing for supporting the channel. Smash that like button if you want to see more. Go check out the Patreon if you want your name on the list, or you want to see what is behind the scenes and stuff. Sith Clone Wars comes out this coming Saturday, so next Saturday. Super excited for that. Anyways, let's talk about this real quick. I don't really have any notes to say about this. It was fun. It's like a meme video. With doing characters in the MCU kind of thing, or Marvel properties, they have like a little bit more banter, and so I wanted to include that in here. It's a little more slapstick, kind of Tony Stark-ish kind of stuff. Just kind of goofy stuff to throw in to add to the dynamic between Anakin and Venom. They're both kind of cynical in a weird way, so I think their bond would work pretty well. But the two of them kind of have like this, like, I don't know, I feel like they'd have this natural bond that would work really well for the two of them. And so it's kind of like natural to let them kind of be maniacs together. So anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video. If you did, you know what to do. I love you all, spread the love, and always remember, my friends, may the Force be with you.